and this comes from the Super Reviewer. The Super Reviewer is watching one of my former videos about Gremlins. Hey, Gremlins is happening, but when is it coming out? Here, I'll just go ahead and read his comment. The Super Reviewer says, guys, go and check out the new Mountain Dew ad with Gremlins. Yes, it's real. That's a sure shot that the studio is really considering putting the film out sooner. So hoping for Gremlins 3 right now, please. And of course, if you haven't had an opportunity, go check out the Super Reviewer on YouTube. He's got some interesting videos about DC Fandom. When DC Fandom came out, I did a whole bunch of videos on that topic. So go check out the Super Reviewer. But what the Super Reviewer is saying here is, if you're not already familiar, a few weeks ago, I feel like this was a Super Bowl, or like this was a Mountain Dew ad that was made for the Super Bowl, but then they ended up scrapping it and they went with the John Cena Super Bowl thing, Mountain Dew commercial. But what it was is they got their original actor. Hold on, let me get back to this page real quick. Their original actor sorry, so many pages open. Zach Galligan. The original actor from the first two Gremlins films. He's sitting on the couch, sipping on a Mountain Dew, and of course Gizmo is sitting right next to him. He's like, "Oh, I want Mountain Dew." So he's like, "Okay, but be careful." So he hands him the Mountain Dew. Of course, Gizmo splashes it all over himself because he's Gizmo. And then of course, all the Gremlins like start popping off of his body and everything. And Zach Galligan's just like, "Oh no, here we go again," right? And it was kind of a fun, like, oh, hey. But as the Super Reviewer brings up, is that Mountain Dew commercial indicative of, hey, now we have some traction on the third Gremlins film? We know that Chris Columbus has the script written. He wrote the original film, directed by Joe Dante. On the previous video that I did, I said that it was Chris Columbus that directed the video, and the whole internet lost their minds. They're like, "You don't know what you're talking about." Sorry, apologies, I made a mistake. I'm learning as we go, right? Joe Dante directed it. It's heavily rumored that he's going to come back to direct the third film. Nothing has been greenlit. That's the thing. Nothing has been greenlit. As this particular article from Den of Geeks suggests, this was kind of a fun commercial to kind of get Gremlins back up into the social consciousness. But also, if the animated HBO Max animated show, Gremlins show, Secrets of the Mogwai, if that actually has some decent success to it, I think we could expect to see Warner Bros. Now, there's some rights deals as well to work out, but we could hopefully see some traction on Gremlins 3. The last point that I want to bring up here is over on Screen Rant. They kind of did a breakdown of what's going on here. What is going on with the Gremlins 3 movie and why it's taking so long? They point out it's most likely that Gremlins 3 has yet to be greenlit due to its difficulty that it will face appealing to a modern audience. In the 1980s, we were used to kind of more creature features, but in 2020, audiences are more used to the paranormal, zombie, slasher kind of thing. If we're talking about horror, Joe Dante also wants to make this a more graphic kind of version. There's also questions about the puppetry. And there's also questions about the animated HBO series itself. If that's going to work, our audience is going to be receptive to a third Gremlins movie. Natalie, there's so much to unpack here. There's so many different moving parts. Like, what's going on? Do you think we're going to see a third Gremlins movie greenlit anytime soon? Does the Mountain Dew commercial have any kind of push towards that? What do you think?
Well, I do think in both cases it's a testing the waters type scenario. The Mountain Dew commercial is friggin' adorable. It does kind of like hit the tinge of, oh yes, that's what I want. Sometimes there are cases where the commercial kind of gives you that thing that you want, and then you're like, oh, that's probably, you remember the ET returns.
Oh, yes. Oh,
commercial last
yes.
year. I mean, it's sweet. But also there's lots of good reasons why ET should have never had a sequel, and it didn't. Even though one was already written, it was scripted, and being handed to Steven Spielberg, it just didn't work out. So I think in the case here with Gremlins 3, it is a bit of a nostalgia gap for a lot of people. There's a bit of an age gap there, and I think it's a property that's just sat with a lot of dust
Yeah.
on it for a long time. Like there hasn't been much in the way in the sake of, just bringing it back to the forefront. There hasn't been, a series like what HBO Max is trying to produce. I think it's a good way forward. And yeah, obviously that's probably what they're waiting on. I do think it's interesting because I really hope if they do this, if they go through with Gremlins 3, that it doesn't turn into like a CGI mess. I know that they talked about insisting on keeping the puppetry a solid part of the movie making process as opposed to using CGI for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that's certain. I just would not have any interest with CGI Gremlins film.
No, I don't think anybody does. I think, as in the article from Den of Geek, one of the things that Zach Galligan kind of brought up was that this Mountain Dew commercial was kind of a perfect litmus test to show that, A, puppetry has really improved in the past 30, 40 years. Look at what the Muppet Show was like back in the 70s, and look at what the Muppet Show is now, or like how they do the Muppets now. Like, puppetry has really improved, especially when you get into the mechanics of everything. And also, to your point with CGI, well, again, in the article, he points out that if there's like a great take that you would love to use, but there's like the boom mic is in the shot, or maybe not the boom mic, but like there's a cable like hanging, or like you can see some of the,
Yeah.
like you can digitally omit those things and keep the performance of the puppet itself. And I think that's kind of where, Dark Crystal, when Dark Crystal, the show came out on Netflix, it wowed audiences. Like the Jim Henson Company knocked it out of the park. It was unfortunate that it wasn't renewed for a second season, but it was beautiful, and the puppetry was masterful, and that's how you do it. But I mean, like in the day and age of CGI, I feel like a lot of audiences want to see more CGI, or that's what we're accustomed to. So kind of going back to that former, maybe that's why the Muppets aren't working right now. Maybe that's why Dark Crystal didn't get renewed for a second season, is that audiences just don't respond to puppetry the same way that we used to.
Well, so I will counter this. I think the Dark Crystal kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with the argument that Gremlins, the franchise, has sat and waited in the dark for a little bit too
Right.
long. I feel like, we'll never know actual ratings about Netflix shows because they don't release that information unless it's something that they want the company to look really, really good, then they'll release that information. But as far as like how successful the Dark Crystal actually was, I wonder if it just didn't hit I wonder if it didn't hit enough of the key demographics that they're looking for,
Yeah.
because it is a franchise that, like, same decade, as the Gremlins. So I think that that's something that, Warner's obviously looking at, and they would pay attention to very closely if they decide to actually move forward with the cost of doing a whole series.
That's a good point. That's a fair point. But the question is for you guys, what do you think of Gremlins 3? Do you think it's imminent? Do you think the Mountain Dew commercial is more indicative of that there is some traction here? Or do you think Warner Brothers and HBO Max is just kind of like hanging tight for a moment just to kind of test the waters, as Natalie pointed out? What are your thoughts? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know. All right, guys. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Luke Skywalker would want you to do. Da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dun.